Chat, what are you doing in here?
First of all, thank you so much for 25,000 subscribers. It almost feels surreal to say that. It's been a while since I just acknowledged how many people there are here now, but it's seriously insane. Ever since I hit 10K, every number above that has pretty much just felt completely beyond my comprehension, but it just keeps getting bigger. So, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Next stop, 100K, I suppose. March 17th of 2025 marked 4 years of me streaming and like more seriously making content on this YouTube channel. The channel has been around a few years longer than that, but about winter or spring of 2021 was when I was bored after a year of mostly sitting inside and just started filling my time with more and more content creation. And frankly, I just couldn't have ever dreamed of where I'd be right now. Anyways, I'll have a bit more to say at the end of the video, but I figured this milestone was as good a time as any to make a new Q&A video. I did one of these way back for the first time when I started this channel. Now back then there was nobody watching, let alone asking questions, but I sort of imagined what kind of questions people might have if they had stumbled on the channel, and I just rolled with that. And then later I made an updated one with real questions from real people when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and then I made another one in 2023. I intended to make one last year in 2024, but I was just busy both personally and with other content, and it was just a victim of triage, I guess. With that said, I did receive some good questions last year when I did ask, even though I never made the video. So a few of these questions are from back then since they just never got answered, but most of them are from this year. Anyways, let's just get into it. I actually think a great place to start is just by addressing some of the questions I get most often, such as, how did you get the name Dumpster Man? Which has been asked in a ton of different ways over the years, and it's always something I'm keen to answer. It's kind of funny how at some point I just picked a silly name and now it's just what everyone knows me as. Not complaining, but safe to say I didn't really expect to be widely known online as Dumpster Man back when I originally conceived of this name. Basically, long story short, I was in a Little Caesars drive-thru with my wife back when we were in college. No judgment, please. I was a broke college kid and the mediocre pizzas there are $5. Anyways, there was a sign on the dumpster that said something like, to whoever is taking pizza out of our dumpster, please come inside and we'll give you a free slice. You are a human being and your life has value, or something along those lines. And I was like, aw, that's sweet. I hope the Dumpster Man got his pizza. And we laughed about the phrase Dumpster Man, but it kind of stuck in my brain for some reason, like it was the name of a shitty superhero or something like that. I made my Steam name that for a while and it just kind of stuck with my friends, and eventually I kind of just kept it. The only real downside is that people unironically call me trash, but I don't really mind it. It's too late to go back now anyways. And actually, shortly after I started working on this video, someone in my Discord found the exact sign, and I'm not kidding. Well, maybe it's not the exact sign, but this is a very similar sign on the same exact Little Caesars restaurant in Fargo, North Dakota, with a very cool story about the owners. I had no idea about any of this, and the origin story of my name was such a non-event overall that sometimes I even wonder if I just made it up. So seeing this in the wild was quite something. Thanks to Score and the Ashwing in my Discord who unearthed this and connected the dots via a random post on Instagram. Another question I get a lot is, how did I decide to start making videos on YouTube or streaming or whatever? And this one is a little bit of a longer story. I've actually had an interest in video and filmmaking for a very long time. I even recently on stream showed a little short movie that I made with one of my friends when I was literally like 11 years old. Around when I was maybe 15 or 16, I started doing a YouTube channel where I mostly played Minecraft. Unfortunately, this channel got taken down because I had no concept of copyright and I just used a bunch of copyrighted music. And then when it did get taken down, I had no idea how to reinstate it. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad, but that is all just lost to time now, and I didn't really back anything up either. I built up somewhere in the realm of like 1,000 subscribers on that channel before I lost it, and I had a video with like 1 million views. So I guess I was moderately successful, but in a very different time in YouTube. To be honest though, the content was kind of bad and about the quality you'd expect from a clueless teenager at the time. I was just riding the early wave of Minecraft success, and I just had a few videos pop off as a result. Anyways, I took a long break from doing this when I went off to college because frankly, I just didn't have the time to focus on something like YouTube. But then around when I started working full time in 2018, I started making Rainbow Six Siege videos with my friends just for fun. And then around 2020, I was just really bored for reasons. And I started making more videos and taking it slightly more seriously. And then in early 2021, I decided to start streaming on Twitch, and I'd say the rest is history, but that's kind of just the beginning. I picked up Ultrakill randomly to play on stream in mid to late 2021, and I really loved playing through it for the first time and decided to turn my playthrough into a video, or I guess multiple videos. Little did I know what kind of hunger there was for Ultrakill content out there, and these videos absolutely blew up, at least by my standards at the time. My channel got partnered in early 2022, and while the two things weren't really correlated, I was going through a tough time at my job and just mentally, and having even a little success and earning a little money doing this did kind of empower me to make the decision to leave my job and to go work for myself. Now, I didn't quit to work on the YouTube channel. That would have been insane because I was making like less than $100 total a month doing this, but my degree is in architecture and I have a solid background in all sorts of design. So the plan was mostly to do graphic design freelancing, which I have done plenty of since then. But the YouTube channel has also been wildly more successful than anything I dreamed of since leaving my full-time employment, which is incredible. I don't want to overstate things here. I still left behind a stable income to make essentially less money and way less stable income at that. So I don't recommend quitting your job to work on your small YouTube channel without any other income unless you have a pretty solid safety net like me. But that I, in my unique situation, am able to make ends meet by working for myself is incredible. So yeah, that pretty much brings us to now. And lastly, a question that I see versions of every now and then, but have never really answered is, why the hat? To be honest, I was actually never much of a hat wearer until around 2020. But because of the pandemic, I didn't get a haircut for a few months and I just had an absolutely untamable mop for a while. So on the rare occasion that I left the house during that period, I'd kind of just throw on a hat, but I ended up liking it. I have pretty thick curly hair that gets unruly pretty easily, so it's nice to just slap a hat on and not worry about what my hair looks like sometimes, especially if I'm just at home and I'm gonna just hop on stream. But the hat kind of just naturally became part of the brand and people associate me with wearing the backwards hat. And as for why I wear it backwards, the answer is really simple. It's not even really a fashion statement. I mean, I'll wear it either way when I go out. The only thing is the way my camera is positioned. If I wear the hat forward, it can kind of cast a weird shadow on my face and you kind of can't see my eyes, which just seems weird. I don't know. Also, I mirror my camera because I like how it looks better. So any text on my hat is backwards anyways. It is what it is. But yeah, that's the entirely uninteresting story of why I'm always, or at least a lot of the time, wearing a hat on stream. I doubt anyone expected it to be all that interesting, but I hate to report the truth is probably even less interesting than you thought. So anyways, on to the viewer questions. How did your taste in games evolve? Did you always enjoy the more niche kind of indie games and movement shooters that you tend to cover? Or was there like a specific moment of enlightenment? So honestly, I have been gaming for long enough that there was a time in my life when indie games as an entire concept wasn't really much of a thing. Or they were maybe a bit, but I wasn't really aware of them or had any access to them. But I think I've always enjoyed experiencing a large variety of games and being exposed to new ideas and things like that. That could probably be traced back to renting games from a place like Blockbuster. I played more formative games than I can even possibly name by just physically renting them back in the day. Of course, some of them were complete crap, but it's not too dissimilar from downloading a bunch of demos to check out on Steam Next Fest or whatever, or buying random indie games for like $5 in bundles that eventually turned into some of my favorites. Back in the day, the prospect of checking out something totally new to me was very exciting and kept me coming back and renting random games off the shelf at Blockbuster. In my more recent adult life, there was a time where I was so busy with college that I didn't really have much time to play games at all. And during this time, I did develop more of a love for indie games since they didn't require such a time investment while I was busy with school projects and whatnot. College was also when I played my now favorite games of all time, Dishonored 1 and 2. I also picked up Rainbow Six Siege as a multiplayer game just to get all my friends together to play something, which was especially important at the time since we were all scattered across the country, or during COVID as well, just shut up in our homes for extended periods of time. But Siege actually to me was more than that. It got me thinking on a deeper level about FPS games and craving deeper levels of mastery and higher skill ceilings. But I also got really burned out on multiplayer games during this time since it was like all I played, which is what led me specifically to indie FPS games and movement shooters, which satisfied that craving for a high skill ceiling and a feeling of mastery, but in a single player environment. Now that's not really a simple answer, but humans are rarely simple, so I just say it was kind of a taste that developed over time due to a lot of factors. Acid Raptor asked, are you planning on exploring any new games or genres after you reach 25K? I'm not quite sure what to make of this question since I already do kind of just play whatever I want on this channel and on my stream. I do, of course, tend to focus more on certain types of games and genres, but that's honestly just because I like playing and making videos on certain genres more. It definitely doesn't mean anything has ever been particularly off the table. So I'd say, yeah, I guess. But not specifically for 25K, like that was some kind of arbitrary threshold that would finally free me from the shackles of making Ultrakill and movement shooter content. Because, I mean, I've already made a ton of videos on games quite different from that. But just to reiterate, you can always expect me to explore different games and genres on this channel. And no, it's not something I was particularly saving for 25K to explore, or like hitting 25K will really change anything in this regard. As for what you can expect coming up in this vein, I have a video on some of my favorite Kingsfield-like dungeon crawlers in the works. This has been a really appealing genre to me that I hope to explore more of. I have more that I want to do with Elden Ring and Souls coming up, per usual. And just in general, if you liked, for example, the Meet Your Next FPS Addiction video, I want to do that type of video, but with more different twists and spins on different genres and ideas. So stay tuned for that. What is my favorite weapon in Ultrakill? Oh man, this changes all the time, but the one that sticks out in my mind, at least since it first released, is the sharpshooter. I think it really hits that sweet spot for me of rewarding experimenting and combo crafting while also just being good and not needing a, you know, quadruple ultra shitcoin tech to be good. It's got a decently high floor and a pretty high ceiling. I also think the standard and alt are nicely balanced and both have their different strong suits, even though I lean towards the alt these days for bigger damage numbers in those situations where I do have fun sharpshooter setups. You also asked favorite boss and favorite level. Favorite boss is still Minos. Although his difficulty isn't what it once was for me, I just kind of find his moveset to be really satisfying. Once you get good at it, there's a lot of fun to be had learning new ways to play around and respond to his moves. He also has the coolest lore and build-up of any of the bosses so far. I mean, Sisyphus has grown on me a lot as well as I've learned him, but to me, he still just doesn't hold a candle to Minos. My favorite level is probably 5-3. I just really enjoy the arenas. There's a cool variety and consistently satisfying challenge level without it being over the top. And then backtracking through the ship after you flip it over is still one of the game's coolest set pieces. But the 0E Encore from the latest update is also really impressive to me. I think it's too early to say if it's one of my favorite levels, but I do just really like this one. And this is kind of an interesting one, basically asking what enemy did I dislike in Ultrakill that ultimately grew on me when I learned how to fight it. I'd say this probably has to go to Mind Flayers. I found the Mind Flayer quite annoying and I didn't really understand its purpose until I was forced to learn how to deal with them in P2. And since then, I actually quite appreciate where they fit into Ultrakill's enemy roster. And they're pretty challenging with a myriad of attacks that test your positioning. But once you're good enough at fighting them, it's also possible to just keep them alive and kind of use them as a healing source, or even bait them for friendly fire. Lots of ways to respond to their different attacks as well. And I mean, yeah, they're hard, almost like mini bosses when they show up, but I like them quite a bit more now than I used to. I still kind of hate that one arena in P2, but I can't deny it totally rewired my thinking about Mind Flayers. They also sort of asked what my favorite enemy is, so I'll do you one better. Favorite and least favorite. I really enjoy the Swords Machine as an enemy. I mean, I enjoy the Swords Machine in its boss encounter as well, but as an enemy, it fills an interesting niche where its aggressiveness kind of forces you to pay attention to and manage its aggro, but without its presence ever being completely overwhelming in an arena. I like Cerberus a lot as well. I mean, they just have a fun rhythm to their attacks. Now, you didn't ask this, but for a least favorite, it used to probably be the Schism because they were just boring and dumb. But since the Schism got a change that made it at least a little more unique, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say it's probably Street Cleaners at the moment. Now, Street Cleaners pose no real threat if you have the pistol and can just use a coin to snipe their tanks, but their difficulty isn't really the issue in my mind. It's kind of just a general lack of interactivity. They just swat away or dodge so many different things that it feels like pistols are kind of your only real reliable option to deal with them, which I just kind of think is a little unfun. I definitely don't hate them though. They're fine and they still fulfill their purpose. And I think how difficult it is to come up with a least favorite just speaks to how good of an enemy roster Ultrakill has at this point. Lastly, C Got Sick was just thanking me for a conversation that happened on my stream a while ago, where I basically just said that homophobia and transphobia had no place in the Ultrakill community, especially since it has so many cool LGBTQ members and even people working on the damn game. And yeah, that discussion ultimately got cut from the main channel video that was made on this stream because frankly, it was just kind of long and rambly and it easily could have occupied 10 plus minutes of a video that was already over an hour. But if I hadn't said it in so many words here before, if you are at all racist, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ, or otherwise bigoted in any way, just save me the trouble and unsubscribe. I do not even remotely want you here, and I don't think you have a place in gaming communities at all, let alone Ultrakill. Have I looked into Ultrakill speedrunning? Sure, I have. Not only were a lot of the people I met and made friends with first in the community speedrunners, but one of the more popular videos on this channel actually features me submitting a time to speedrun.com. Now, I'm sure you mean more deeply than that, and the truth is I have speedrun some levels in my own time just for fun. In particular, for a while, I was at least pretty decent at 0.5 and 6.2, although anymore I have no real idea what the popular strats are. Just in general, I'd say I have a passive interest in speedrunning, but I also just don't really have the time to grind down my times to a point where they'd be particularly impressive or competitive. So a passive interest that will likely remain. That said, I do think the speedrunning community for this game is really cool, and in my experience, it is the friendliest corner of the Ultrakill community, which as a whole is not always so welcoming. So I'd never hesitate to recommend someone else check it out. And I even have a video in my pipeline coming up that, while it isn't exclusively about speedrunning, it is sort of my own personal attempt at a love letter to the Ultrakill speedrunning community. And I'll just leave it at that for now, but keep an eye out this year for something along those lines. Thoughts on Ultrakill lore? I've actually been asked this a lot, or different versions of it, and I kind of just almost never have a good answer. Sort of, you're just barking up the wrong tree. I do love Ultrakill's story, and I find the lore really interesting, at least when other people unpack it, and it adds to the overall experience of the game for me to learn about this stuff, but I don't really have any thoughts on it other than just, it's cool and I like it. Just keep cooking, Hikita. What happened when no more Ultrakill? I die, probably. Or as Cardiff KJC asked in a more normal way, are you happy that Ultrakill has influenced your channel, and are you scared that your channel will get pigeonholed into an Ultrakill only channel and eventually die if you don't post Ultrakill? Now, that's a lot to think about, but I'll try and unpack this. Now, before I say anything else about this, let me just get something straight here. Without Ultrakill, there is no Dumpster Man, really. At least not my main channel as you know it, and whether I like to admit that or not, it is just simply the truth. I've often heard that the hardest part of starting a YouTube channel is getting your first 1,000 subscribers. And having done that now 2 separate times in my life, I would agree with that to an extent. It is true that on a website where 2.6 million videos are uploaded daily, it is borderline impossible to get anyone to watch even one of your videos once, let alone stick around and watch multiple. But once you have some traction in the form of an audience, suddenly that aspect of it all becomes substantially easier. It doesn't like guarantee continued growth, but it just means you have something to build on. For me, Ultrakill is that foundation of this channel. When my first couple Ultrakill videos took off, I absolutely blitzed to 1,000 subscribers in a matter of months from literally only like 20 or 30. So I can't stress enough that without Ultrakill, I really don't know if anyone ever would have seen my videos at all. Now, my goal was never to make my channel entirely about whatever content I first blew up on. But seeing that people liked Ultrakill and wanted more of it gave my channel some direction for a while. It made me aware that there was a whole genre of indie FPS similar to it, and it gave me an idea of what parts of my videos, stream, and personality that people were vibing with. What I didn't expect was that by making a few more Ultrakill videos over the coming months and year, that this would come to completely define that period of my channel in a way that over time I feel like has done a poor job of representing the totality of what my channel is meant to be about. Which is just exactly what it has always said in my bio, even before I ever played Ultrakill. FPS and variety gaming, playing weird games wrong. That's obviously a huge simplification of everything this channel has come to be about over the years, but all to say my goal has never once in the life of this channel been to just be an Ultrakill guy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm far from mad that people like that content, or that they look to me for my opinions and takes on things about the game, or that people look forward to seeing me suffer against whatever the next hardest level or boss is, or just in general that people view me synonymously with a game that I think is very cool and that I love. But I wish I didn't feel like I had to claw and scrape for every crumb of relevancy outside of Ultrakill. Like, I have had people tell me that they think it sucks that only my Ultrakill videos perform well on my channel, only to then admit that they only watch my Ultrakill videos. Like, come on, man. It does make me understand why so many gaming channels just make content on one game, because it's just so much simpler, but it's just not what I want to do. And even if I did, I feel like Ultrakill is kind of a bad game to exclusively make content on. At least for me, it would be. Because as I see it, there's really only so much you can talk about, do, and explore before it starts to get worn out or at least not widely appealing. And that's not even considering that there is a rapidly approaching end to official updates to the game, and people who want to keep making content on it are going to have to get creative with mods or whatever else to keep it going. I feel as though having established myself as someone who makes videos on a variety of games other than Ultrakill, and hell, at this point, my most viewed video is not Ultrakill anymore, and it's not even particularly close. It gives me a leg up on other Ultrakill channels who will almost assuredly struggle when interest in the game starts to wane. I'm not rooting against anyone or even the longevity of this game. I'm just stating a reality. Success in this content creation world is so fleeting that I don't blame anyone for going all in while they can. It's just that my own personal mindset is different. So all to say that although it can be frustrating to constantly fight against the perception that my channel is an Ultrakill channel, or that the algorithm doesn't push my videos that aren't on Ultrakill sometimes, I feel unequivocally like I am and have always been taking the right approach to scaling my channel for the future by choosing to not just mainline Ultrakill content, since people will eventually lose interest in it. I'm grateful for the foundation it has provided the channel and continued growth and success at that. I have every intention of making content on it as long as I still enjoy doing so, and as I do, I will continue to build up a foundation of other content in the meantime, so that when I eventually do move on, it can be done as seamlessly as possible. Probably if you're watching this video, I'm already preaching to the choir anyways, but if you're this deep in the video and you're like, wait, you make videos on stuff other than Ultrakill? Buckle up, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and join the party. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, if you asked me this question 5 years ago, I don't think I would have said that I'd be streaming and making videos like I am now. And I also would have said something along the lines of, what the hell is Ultrakill? So yeah, it's tough to say. I get a lot of joy out of just making videos and streaming, but I've never really seen this as like a long-term career plan or anything. Just something I'm doing as long as I enjoy it and can keep it up for a while. With that said, as long as I do keep enjoying it, I'm gonna keep doing it. There's a non-zero possibility that it completely blows up and I can try and do it more seriously in the long term. It's tough to say I wouldn't be okay with that in the event that it happens, but I'm also not necessarily banking on it. So realistically, I'll probably just keep making videos as long as it's fun, while I explore some other stuff, which I have been doing. My long-term goal is to remain self-employed, whether content creation really pops off or not. So I gotta be at least a little flexible, but I'm optimistic about it. So yeah, I mean, that's not really a straightforward answer, but I don't honestly believe anyone who has a straightforward answer to this question. Where do I see myself in 69 years? I mean, that one's actually quite a bit easier. Dead. I mean, I'll be like 99 years old. It'd be cool to live that long, I guess, but like dead. I'll probably be dead. What are your thoughts on your current position in the content creator world? Oh boy, I mean, that's a great question that I did have to sit and think about a bit before responding. So here we go. Let's open a can of worms. I'm super grateful for the amount of success I've had in content creation, and I don't take that for granted one bit. I started off this channel making Rainbow Six Siege videos pretty much just to share with my friends, so that anyone, let alone 25,000 people, have taken an interest in what I'm doing here is mind-boggling. But with that said, I think every time I hit one of these milestones, after just taking a moment to be thankful for it, I do then zoom out and think, what's next? I do still have some pretty painful misses on YouTube from time to time, but by and large, I'm pretty satisfied with not only where I'm at on YouTube, but also where I'm going. Obviously, a lot of people are here for Ultrakill, which is fine, but more and more my channel has definitely become about a lot more than just Ultrakill. Of course, that hasn't ever really been the whole thing anyways, but at some point, people's perceptions of what this channel is about are kind of colored by what you see in your recommended, or what comes up when you sort by my most popular videos, even though it never really tells the full story. But I kind of already went on depth in that aspect of things, so all to say that having things like an Elden Ring video that broke 1 million views, or a video where I recommended a handful of random indie FPS games breaking 100k views, and eclipsing the success of my most recent Ultrakill videos, all does give me a lot of hope that there's plenty of interest in what I'm doing here outside of Ultrakill. I think if I have a major point of frustration on YouTube, it's just the way the algorithm works. Since it really feels like it limits what I can do here, I've gotten pretty good at packaging my videos so that fans of Ultrakill and movement shooters and whatever the bulk of people are here for will maybe be more inclined to check it out, even if it's something different maybe than what they're used to. But I also sort of feel like there's an issue where if I can't find like an angle for something, I just don't make the video, which can be kind of disheartening because frankly, I'm not just a guy who plays fast-paced FPS games and rages at difficult bosses. I'm a complex individual with a ton of diverse interests, as is pretty much everyone. My favorite game of 2025 so far is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Yeah, I bet you didn't guess that. But I don't really feel like I have an angle to make a video about that game, even though I absolutely adore it and feel like I have a ton to say about it. All to say, I think this makes YouTube kind of poorly suited for what I want to do with content creation in an ideal world, but I also don't really have another option, if that makes sense, so it'll just have to do. YouTube is, of course, only one side of the coin for me, so this does lead pretty nicely into a question I got from Suggestive as well, which is, has streaming turned out the way that I wanted it to? I think the answer is kind of both yes and no. Realistically, when I started, I had no real expectations other than just that I'd give it a shot and do it for fun. Now, have I had fun with streaming? Hell yeah, I have. The way the stream has fed into the growth I've experienced on YouTube has been beyond my wildest expectations, but the stream itself hasn't really grown accordingly. It's kind of weird because people will watch my Ultrakill streams and YouTube videos, and I've seen people even call me a big streamer in that realm, which is kind of hilarious to me. I mean, maybe in comparison to other people who stream Ultrakill when I pull like 150 people on Twitch when there's new content, but on any other day, I'm averaging like 10 to 20 viewers and no more. Maybe scratching 30 if I play Ultrakill on any other day. And it's been that way for like 2 years without much change, positive or negative, even with all the growth I've had here. Now, I don't know if it's really a problem. I mean, it might sound like cope, but I like that the stream community is smaller and more relaxed, and I prioritize just being able to stream and make content on whatever I want over maximizing viewership. But I'd be lying if I said it felt like the stream couldn't have grown at least a little more steadily alongside the YouTube. I don't know if I'd really go so far as to say that it hasn't turned out the way I wanted though, because in an indirect way, it has been more successful than I ever would have imagined. Streaming itself has definitely proven to be the most challenging and fickle part of the experience overall, and the one that I clearly least understand how to funnel growth into. But from just where I started, kind of assuming I'd never really have anyone watching, I'd say it has totally blown away my wildest expectations. So I guess this is as good a time as any to say, hey, if you didn't know, I usually stream like 3 times a week, most often Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, sometimes more, all sorts of games, lots of FPS games, Souls-likes, but really whatever I'm feeling. I'd really love it if you come check it out from time to time, especially if you're someone who likes discovering and chatting about games, which I'd guess you are if you're watching this channel. Anyways, thanks for these questions. They're definitely some of the more thought-provoking questions I've ever had in one of these, and it really got me thinking about things. These are all things I usually just like internalize, but it's nice to have an opportunity to say some of this stuff that I think about in regards to my channel out loud, and I hope you just found it interesting. How are you even doing in life, mate? Genuinely, unironically, I appreciate you asking. I'm great, actually. There's this sentiment that some content creators have peddled that doing this is like harder than a 9-to-5 job. And as someone who did both, lol. No. All things considered, I am living the dream. And while content creation isn't the absolute only thing I do, I am self-employed. I make my own hours. I'm in control of my own work-life balance. And when I do have to work, at least part of my job is just playing and talking about video games. My bills get paid. I have a roof over my head, great family and friends, a wife. Like, what more can you ask for? There's lots of ups and downs within what I do, and analytics and shit can really bog you down, but as soon as I zoom out for even a second, I can recognize that my life is really freaking good. But like I said, I genuinely appreciate you asking because it is way too common for people to just not even treat content creators like human beings. So it's nice to just be asked how I'm doing every once in a while, as dumb as that sounds. A longtime community member, slightly worse neon white player than me, and all around great asker of questions, Suggestive, actually had a lot more questions for me. Like, knowing what I know now, would I still get into streaming? Considering that my only real goal when I started was just to occupy some time and have a little fun, yeah. I think there's no real universe where I don't at least try it. I think though, if I had to go back and give myself some advice, it's just to never stop having fun with it. I've definitely let numbers and some of the things that people say get inside my head to the point where it has, at least a little bit, eroded my enjoyment of streaming at times and made me anxious to hit the go live button. But then I remember why I do it in the first place, which is just to have fun and share games with people and create a small community of like-minded people. And when I remind myself that that's what I do it all for, it does put everything into perspective a lot better. It is kind of an unfortunate conclusion that anything you do as even like remotely a job will eventually stop being as fun as it once was when you were just doing it for fun. And I've definitely had periods of burnout or just algorithmic disappointment as a result. But I think my desire to keep streaming is just driven by how fun it can be at its absolute best. Within this last year, I don't think anything has highlighted this better than this all-day stream I did where I raised $1,000 for charity. So when I'm at my absolute absolute lowest points with streaming and content creation, I think just remembering that I've done a lot of cool stuff helps bring me back. So yeah, I think I do it all over again, maybe with a few asterisks and lessons learned here and there, but I overall think I would have made myself of 4 years ago pretty proud with where I'm at now. I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but she asked if I like stream plugins or streams that have all sorts of bells and whistles. I actually do have strong feelings on this. Honestly, I hate this type of stuff. The more sound bits, pop-ups, and little mini games your stream has, the less likely I am to want to watch and keep watching. And I feel like if you need this type of stuff to stay engaged with the stream, I mean, power to you, but you are just not the kind of viewer I'm trying to reach. Now, I do try and do fun, interactive segments on my streams when they make sense, but only if they enhance the content and not take away from it. I've actually been programming little stream overlays in Godot for some of my stream segments, and it's been a nice way to learn coding and the engine, but ultimately, I have a very soft touch view on this type of thing. Less is way more. And I personally don't like when streamers just slap a whole bunch of random crap on their stream, like little keys to jangle in front of their audience. And I apply this to my own stream as well. It's also just really bad for editing into YouTube content. I mean, it might be fun for like a minute on stream, but then when I want to go make a video out of that stream, having a whole bunch of crap going on just makes it way more difficult to both edit and, in my opinion, less fun to watch and enjoy as edited content. Are there any streams that I regret? Oh boy. Not really any jumping to mind that I'd like go back and just not do that stream at all. But I have a few regrettable moments, of course. I'm human and I've broadcasted thousands of hours of my life over the past 4 years. I've had bad days where I just was in a bad mood and I probably should have just not gone live. I've definitely said a couple things that I'd probably take back. I mean, nothing horrible, mind you, at all. But just things that I didn't think through or that I didn't really have enough info to comment on in the spur of the moment. I do actually pride myself that what you see is kind of just what you get with me. I'm pretty much the same person off stream as on. I do kind of just let my thoughts fly sometimes, and I don't really police my personality on stream. I think it has been an asset to my online presence personally, and I hope it feels refreshing that in a sea of streamers trying to be brand friendly and as non-controversial as possible or whatever, even if it has led to me putting my foot in my mouth once or twice. Now, naturally, some people are just not going to vibe with you when you have a strong personality, and that's just something that I've had to get used to. I think my only sort of real answer to this question is that I had kind of a bad stretch mentally with Ultrakill streams, particularly when it comes to just dealing with the community, that caused me to have to do some soul searching. Now, as my Ultrakill streams grew, I started to really honestly resent the community because some of them would come into my chat and backseat me relentlessly, spoil things for me, and sometimes just generally be snarky and nasty and just whatever, in a way that didn't suit what I wanted out of the stream audience I was trying to build. Now, obviously, this was a very small portion of people, but when one person can spoil the experience that drastically, it can be hard not to just react to them. Now, of course, I can't control who clicks on my stream, but this did lead to me way locking down moderation during those streams, you know, going follower-only mode, issuing timeouts and bans all the time really proactively for people doing anything resembling backseating or spoiling. And while I will stand by 100 times out of 100 that that is the type of viewer and chatter that I do not want, period. And I've worked hard to curate a community that isn't like that by having actual rules and standards for my moderation. But when a bunch of new people come in for an Ultrakill stream, I honestly just started getting really defensive of my stream experience. And when you start just automatically assuming the worst in people, you kind of just start seeing problems where there maybe aren't any. And I definitely went over the top moderating and chastising chatters who didn't really do anything super wrong. Probably could have got a warning at worst, or honestly even just been ignored and just not given the attention they were probably craving. The worst time for this was definitely the violence update, where chat was honestly pretty fine, and I was way overly protective of my chat and my gameplay experience when I started just seeing even a little backseating. Now, I've already owned up to this, and I've talked about how this stream was the moment that I realized I needed to change my mindset about moderation, so this isn't anything new I'm really airing here. I still always have a good time on stream checking out new Ultrakill content, and they're always really good for the channel. So I definitely don't regret doing those streams to the extent that I would have just not clicked to go live that day, but I think the overall mindset that I was approaching Ultrakill streams with was definitely unhealthy and led to me having a worse time and putting forward a worse viewing experience. Now, don't get me wrong, especially when those updates drop, I do still take backseating and spoiling pretty seriously. And if you are someone who likes to do that stuff or just feel like you can't help yourself, you honestly probably just need to find another streamer to watch. And I say that genuinely with zero malice, but I definitely was also way over the top protective over it for a while. And ever since I realized the extent of how much I had let that stuff get to me and ruined my own experience, I have tried to adopt a healthier mindset and approach to dealing with it. Now, other than that, sometimes I plan something on stream that I think is just going to be really fun and people are going to enjoy it and it just doesn't do well. or it doesn't have the interest that I maybe thought it would. I don't know if I'd just like go undo those streams though either. I mean, they're always a learning experience if nothing else. And just in general, like if I had fun, then I feel like it's at least somewhat positive. I mean, this was a good question though. Even though I don't really have like a great answer, it was still interesting to think about. Was my worst multiplayer gaming moment? I don't think I have like a moment, but back when I was really into Rainbow Six Siege, I played a lot of ranked for a while, and that was kind of when I realized that ranked game modes are just not for me. I actually think I was pretty decent at Siege, and at my best ever, I felt pretty confident in my skills and knowledge. But taking things to ranked, it turned out was just not a fun way for me to engage with the game. I don't play the game enough anymore to really care about grinding ranked, so I mostly just play standard or unranked or whatever they call it these days when I do hop on. But I think just realizing I didn't care enough about the color of the little badge next to my name to put myself through the mental ringer that is ranked was probably a healthy realization. I play games for fun at the end of the day, and when they stop being fun, I mean, what's the point? I do think playing a few hundred hours of Siege Ranked was ultimately what led to me burning out on that game though. I still enjoy it from time to time, but not even close to like I did back then. What is the hardest game I've ever played, and would I stream it? That's kind of tough to answer for me. I've played a lot of really widely considered hard games, like all Souls games. Ultrakill, in its own unique way, has presented some of the toughest challenges that I've personally had in a game. My toughest gaming experience ever was probably completing a Souls game at level 1, which I did last year with Dark Souls 3. Now, I knew it would be tough, and I did it because it was going to be tough, but the way it tested my skills and patience went well beyond what I expected, and I'm just proud to have gotten through it, period. But again, that was a self-imposed challenge, so I don't know if that counts exactly. As the like first playthrough goes, I mean, the early parts of Sekiro were so tough that I almost put the game down entirely. But once I got to a certain point in the game pretty early on, it kind of just clicked. And while it was still really tough, I found the difficulty more satisfying and enjoyable from there on out. But man, that first playthrough can be really brutal until you do have that click moment. Or honestly, maybe you never do, and this game could be really tough both mentally and mechanically. And yeah, otherwise, I don't know. I've played a lot of games that rank in kind of like a similar tier of how hard I found them. I don't really too often seek out like blatant rage games per se either, because I just don't enjoy them that much. But I do enjoy beating my head against a tough challenge and eventually overcoming it, with some of the best examples being the Orphan of Kos, Sisyphus, of course, Millennia or Radon in Elden Ring. Recently, the final boss of Nine Souls gave me a really satisfying challenge. I also spent months, if not years, trying to beat Sephiroth in the original Kingdom Hearts as a kid, though I doubt I would find that boss quite as hard these days. That sticks out in my mind as being like the original thing that made me realize I enjoyed difficulty and challenging content in games. I actually think I would like to go back to those games on stream someday and see just like how well they hold up. But yeah, I don't really have a clean answer here. I feel like it's easier to find examples of like individual hard challenges than one game that was just so hard and beat me down over and over again. But I hope that was at least a somewhat satisfying answer. Show me a nice building. Okay, so for those that don't know, my previous job and my degree is in architecture. My favorite architect is Louis Kahn, and I could honestly pick any of his incredible buildings. But I'll pick one that I visited myself in person multiple times. This is the Salk Institute. It's a biological research institute in La Jolla, California. And every time I'm in the San Diego area, I try and stop by here. It's just an amazing spot to sit and just listen to the water flow and watch the clouds go by. I always try to take some pictures as well. The last time I was there was paragliders flying past it, and it was really awesome. Anyways, I love this building mainly because of the honest simplicity of the materials and the way that they add up to something much greater than the sum of their parts. Concrete, which might seem really cold in other applications, actually makes the space really warm and light because of the way it reflects the sun. Probably also due to the use of the teak wood as an accent. And I love this connection to nature and the ocean as well, which is super fitting for a biological research facility, and the way that this stream of water just appears to run right out into the ocean. So yeah, I mean, is it my favorite building of all time? I don't know. Like, I've been to some pretty amazing historical sites in Europe and stuff like that, but I feel like it'd be boring if I said Prague Castle or the Florence Duomo. So Salk Institute it is. It's a really cool space, and maybe a place you didn't already know about. I actually have very tentative plans to integrate my architecture and design experience and interests more into videos moving forward. I'm not really ready to divulge much more than that, but it's something that I look forward to seeing if I can pull off. Edicus asked, what has been your favorite video to work on or edit? This is without a doubt in my mind, far and away, the Elden Ring videos from last year. Not only were those streams just super fun, but going back through my entire experience and packaging it into a video and weaving it into a satisfying story was just great as well. Since some time had passed between the streams and me starting the edit, it was like reliving those super fun streams all over again. And I'm really happy with how the edit for that one turned out as well. It was super fun to piece together, and it posed some interesting challenges as well. Like, just since that was such a long playthrough, like, how do you condense that down into one video? Like, those are some of my longest videos, but it was still a challenge to even get it into an hour or two. And even with as long as those videos were, I never really got sick of them like I do with some other videos as I'm working on them. Now, I should have another Elden Ring video coming up this year, at least one, I'd say. So keep an eye out for that. I mean, it's just a fun game to make videos on and edit for. Favorite video game OSTs? Well, Ultrakill is like an obvious one, but I think I'm kind of different in that while some people really enjoy sitting down and listening to Ultrakill's OST, I don't know if it's really my cup of tea for just casual listening. I do absolutely love it in the context of the game though. And actually in general, I think I feel this way about a lot of soundtracks, if not almost all of them. I find it really surprising how many people I talk to, especially online, that listen to OSTs as like their entire music taste. Because while I do agree that soundtracks can be absolutely incredible music, usually I have to actually like the source media first, and even then the enjoyment of the music rarely extends beyond the context that it came from. And for me, I'm not saying you're wrong if you feel differently, but as someone who is a really big fan of just plain old music, like I played in a band in college, I spent countless hours discovering bands, collecting physical media, going to shows and being involved in scenes and whatnot. Frankly, soundtracks just don't feel like the same type of thing to me. But a lot of people who've watched this channel for a while can probably guess that Katana Zero and Fury are two of my favorites. Not only amazing games that I love, but the rare game OSTs that for me have extended beyond the original context and have just become music that I really genuinely enjoy. I could also probably shout out just about every single Souls game soundtrack, but that'd get redundant pretty fast. So I'll just say that Dark Souls 3 in particular, I think is my favorite. And even more specifically, I think Slave Knight Gale's theme is honestly maybe just the best piece of music ever recorded for a video game. It is wild how good that song is. Now, favorite music in general, I mean, I'm a huge music fan, like I said, so there's honestly just way too much to list, but I enjoy mainly punk and alternative type stuff. I've honestly got some favorites in pretty much any genre you can think of. I actually usually wear a lot of band and tour merch on stream for those with a keen eye. But just to shout out a few, I mean, obviously I've got the Menzingers flag behind me, the Refused flag in front of me. I've got a Foxing shirt that I wear on stream a lot, and they released my favorite album of last year, Origami Angel, the Callous Dowboys, who just released an incredible single. And actually, Dan from the band watches the channel and invited me to a show where I live, which was sick. Shout out Dan and the Dowboys if you're somehow watching this. I actually go to shows where I live in the Twin Cities a lot, so if you see me, honestly, don't be shy. Just feel free to come say hi. I'll be at the Arm's Length, Prince Daddy, and Riley show, another group of bands that I've really been loving lately in a couple months. And yeah, I mean, I could talk forever about music. Honestly, I think I'll just link my Rate Your Music account, where a lot of my all-time favorite stuff is rated. I mean, check that out if you're curious. I love to talk about music. Have I ever considered making my own game before? Not only have I considered it, but I've actually taken some baby steps towards doing it. I've pretty slowly but consistently been learning the Godot engine. I've completed some really small projects and started working on some bigger ones. A big goal of mine this year is to have a game completed by the end of the year. Now, I had a pretty simple and goofy idea earlier this year, and it's not maybe one that most people would expect, but I think the best way for me to get stuff done is just to stop talking about it and push myself to do it. So this little teaser on your screen is probably all you're going to get until I finish it, if I finish it. Who knows? But yes, all to say that is a huge interest of mine and something that I am actively pursuing. Dave asked, are there any games you change your mind about after playing them again? Yeah, definitely. I mean, both positive and negative. But usually a second pass at a game tends to improve my opinion a lot. With that said, these days there's just so much for me to play that I don't feel super inclined to return to a game that I didn't really mesh with in the first place. But I won't say it hasn't happened before. Probably most prominently, I bounced off of Dark Souls several times before fully committing to it. And even once I did, I was kind of like forcing myself to play it for like half the game before I started genuinely enjoying it. It's now one of my favorite games and series of all time, so I'm super glad that I did. But if that game didn't have the reputation that it does, I probably would have dropped it and never finished it. Glad that I didn't, but all to say, it can be hard to force myself to play and return to games that I didn't have a very good first impression of. I don't think I have a great example of the opposite happening, but I'm sure it has. A lot of times I'm blown away by the promise of like a demo or like the initial early access release of a game, only to find that it didn't really make good on the promise that it had when the full release comes around. But maybe that's a little different than what you're asking. And probably some games I enjoyed as a kid wouldn't hold up as well these days, but I feel like that's pretty standard. BGB asked favorite movie and favorite desert? My favorite movie of all time, I've long said, is Magnolia. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors of all time, having made many of my all-time favorite films, such as There Will Be Blood, Punch Drunk Love, and Boogie Nights. But Magnolia is the one that really takes the cake for me. It's long and dense with a massive ensemble cast of some of the best actors of all time, following their loosely connected lives over a 24-hour period in Los Angeles. The cinematography is just absolutely gorgeous, but in general, it's really hard to talk about this film without spoiling any of it. But I will say that all of the lengthy exposition in this film and build-up leads to some of the best payoffs and most profound moments I've seen in movies ever, and a climax that you literally just have to see to believe. It's really an incredible, beautiful film that I could talk about forever, and I think more people should watch it. Some of my other favorites include Pulp Fiction, Synecdoche, New York, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Big Lebowski, No Country for Old Men. I'm aware I kind of have like a basic entry-level film student bro letterbox taste. Nothing mind-blowing here, but it is what it is. I'm trying to be better about watching more movies again. It's been a while since I've really watched movies as much as I did in like high school and college. And favorite desert? I'm a big fan of the Sonoran Desert, especially in southern Arizona where you just have endless surreal forests of saguaro cacti. I have family out in Arizona that I visit pretty often, and I can't recommend enough the Sonoran Desert Museum in Tucson, but I assume you actually meant dessert, which would make a lot more sense. I love me some pumpkin pie. I'm obviously not eating that year round, but it does just make me love it even more when Thanksgiving rolls around and I can finally have a slice of pumpkin pie. And lastly, what am I looking forward to in life in both the short and long term? I'm honestly not much of a planner, and especially lately, making major plans for the long term feels kind of pointless, since so much changes all the time in what I do, and the world is in kind of a weird place right now without going too much into that. I am super grateful though to be able to work for myself, to have some success in content creation, and in the short term, I'm just looking forward to seeing where it goes and exploring what's next for me in this world. And I feel confident saying that if I can execute them how I want, the videos that I have coming up for this year will easily, far and away, be my best ever on this channel. What I'm planning is somewhat of a departure from the format I've been doing for the past year or so, but I think that anyone who likes my videos will like what I've got planned. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let the videos speak for themselves when they arrive. In the long term, I have seen my success and sustainability in this realm grow every single year, but I can't lie. I left my full-time job to do content and other freelance work in 2022, and if it weren't for my wife, who is extremely successful in her field and has a great, stable job with a stable income, I'm not sure how long I could have done this for. So I'd really like to pay it back to her by just really making this thing work. We both want to buy a house eventually and have kids, and it would be insane and beyond my wildest dreams if I could make that happen while being totally self-employed. Currently, there doesn't seem to be any reason why that couldn't be the case, but in the long term, I'm just really looking forward to figuring out how I can make that a reality. Now, that's all I had for questions. I just want to wrap this up with some general statements and shoutouts. First off, I feel so lucky every time I pass another milestone. Frankly, I didn't start YouTube with the expectation of really anyone ever watching my videos. I can recognize hard work and dedication played at least some role in me getting where I am, but like so much of this, it's just being in the right place at the right time. And I was on vacation on the coast of Oregon when I found out my Ultrakill video had hit the algorithm. I shot from like 25 subscribers to 100 in an instant. And when I got home, I saw my video right next to Markiplier's on the first page of search results when you search for Ultrakill. I knew my life was about to change, but I didn't realize how much. Now, I've already told much of this story in this video already, but 4 years later, all to say, I'm just blown away at where I've gotten. I've probably honestly left a lot of growth and viewership on the table by just sticking to my guns and my greater vision for this channel and not going all in on Ultrakill. But if you're here watching a video like this in 2025, you already know what's up, and that's not what I'm about anyways. I've got to say I couldn't have done this without any help either, so I have a lot of thank yous to give. First of all, to my wife, Britta, who was my first and for a long time only viewer and fan, and still to this day does so much behind the scenes to support the existence of this channel. Next, my friends whose contributions made the early days of this channel what they are. Just a group of endlessly funny people Lifelong friends, most of them, literally. And the nights we had just drinking beers and laughing at the stupid shit we'd get up to in Rainbow Six Siege and other games were the single reason I created this channel in the first place. Huge thank you, of course, necessary to anyone who has ever been a part of my moderation team, editing team, or just anyone who has made behind the scenes contributions to this channel, big or small. This stuff I really truly can't do alone. So that people are willing to get in the trenches and help me with this stuff is just amazing. The Ultrakill community in general, but especially the speedrun community, were early supporters of my channel and stream, and their positive support is a big reason that I stuck with this game at all. There are way more people here that I'd like to thank than I possibly can, but just know that if you're one of the people who's been here for a long time, hung out and chat for my Ultrakill adventures all along the way, but especially in those early days, and have just been a positive force in my Discord or other public places within this community, I am so grateful for you. Big shout out as well to Ultrakill creators who I've either directly interacted with or who have indirectly inspired me. I've met so many cool streamers, content creators, game developers, and just creative people in general through doing this. Frankly, I've been bad myself at seeking out collaborations and making friends within this space, but if you've reached out to me especially, you deserve a special shout out here. I developed such cool relationships, in particular with some game developers, and while I can't shout out absolutely every dev that I've had positive interactions with, just thank you in general for what you all are doing. I gotta give a shout out as well to streamers and content creators who probably don't know I exist, but have had a huge impact on my content in terms of just influencing my style of streaming, editing, thumbnails, or just my approach to brainstorming ideas and writing, even just being background noise to many nights of editing and script writing. Just thank you. Even if you don't know who I am, your impact on my channel has been massive. And last but not least, thank you so much to my community. If you watch my streams regularly or in my Discord or whatever else, seriously, just thank you so much. I'm always sort of confused why anyone really gives a shit about what I'm doing beyond just watching a video or stream here and there. And growing a community has never been like the main goal, but if you've been a part of that in any way, I'm seriously so grateful, and just having a place where I can chat and interact makes it a lot easier to want to keep doing this stuff. Now, finally, that's all I've really got for you. I hope I answered a ton of your questions though. Thank you again so much for 25K. Per usual, I don't really know what the future holds, but if nothing else, I'm here to stay. See you when I see you.
Hit that like
This is
button.
alright.
Smash that bell, hit that
Hit
bell
this-
button, hit this
Destroy my
bell
pussy.
button.
Subscribe to Dumper Man.